lot of breaking news. The United States has seized 2 Venezuelan tankers, one flying under a Russian flag that has been the subject of a chase for 2 weeks. One more recently identified has been seized in the Caribbean. Protests are breaking out all over Iran, and they've turned deadly. I'll get you details on that. But the big story at this hour is coming out of the Twin Cities, where a protester, what is believed to be a protester, a 37-year-old white woman, attempted to drive through an ICE agent after ICE agents were talking to her by the side of the car. We can play the best video of it. As you see, she's dead. The car is a big black sedan. There's an officer, clearly, the officer at the side of the window telling her something, and she drives right at the ICE agent, who fires. I don't know how many shots. I don't know what was said. I don't know what's going to happen. But if you're watching on the Salem News Channel here in the Relief Factor studio, you can see the slow motion. I've also posted this at the top of my X account. So if you want to see the best video I can identify thus far for demonstrating what happened in Minneapolis, it's the one that I have at the top of my X account, and we're showing right now on the Salem News Channel. Mayor Fry of Minneapolis immediately took to a press conference after the shooting and killing of the driver and said this, cut number 2.
You have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
Actually, it's not on them. If they acted with legitimate force, and it appears that they did, there'll be an investigation, of course. Jacob Fry is a moron who thinks he is the president of the United States and controls ICE. He doesn't. ICE is a federal agency subject to the Director of Homeland Security, who is subject to the president, and they are there subject to federal law, and they are not to be obstructed or attacked in any way or even driven into. I do not believe the ICE agent who fired the shots was injured. Jacob Fry went on to say this, cut number 3.
Collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets. And in this case, quite literally killing people.
So Jacob Fry is a hard left mayor of a hard left city, and he does not want to understand, perhaps he is ignorant of basic constitutional structure, but ICE does not answer to him. ICE does not go where local mayors want them to go, when they want them to go. They don't leave on the authority of local mayors. Secretary Noem, Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, had this today at a Brownsville, Texas presser, cut number 4.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. and my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information, but this goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and our law enforcement are under every single day. These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such. We will continue to protect our ICE officers and in cooperation with other law enforcement agencies as well.
Now, Vice President Vance has given an interview to Jesse Waters, a bit of which has been released, and it does not concern this incident. It was pre-recorded before this incident happened, but it's interesting in light of what he has to say. Cut number 5.
Well, I think Tim Walz should resign. I almost feel bad for the guy, except for the fact that he should have seen this. And whether there was something criminal, whether he was aware of the fraud, which would be criminal, or whether he simply looked the other way, it's a massive, massive failure of government. The Trump administration,
Right,
by
about
the way,
Vice President is right about Tim Walz as a failure. Jacob Fry is a disgrace because he doesn't have any idea what happened here. It's impossible to say with definitive purpose what happened here. He's gone to the left. He's inciting. I hope there's no rioting tonight. He's trying to incite a riot, intentionally or otherwise. It could incite a riot. Meanwhile, on the tanker front, Secretary Rubio, Secretary of State, said this about Venezuelan oil today, cut number 6.
The oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The president described it last night. Secretary will have more to say on it today, who is involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're ensured that that's what the case is, but it also gives us an amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
That is, they are running Venezuela through the leverage they have over the only thing that Venezuela has that can make currency for the police state that is largely still in power there after Maduro was taken to the United States. Secretary Rubio went on to talk about Greenland at length today, cut number 7.
Clarify your comments to lawmakers. Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there. But so I just reminded them of the fact that not only did Truman want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term.
The White House put out a statement last night saying that the military option is on the table. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. They said that the military option is on the table. So is the administration really willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead with military operations?
What I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president always retained the option. Every president, not this president, every president always retains the option. I'm not talking about Greenland. I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means. As a diplomat, which is what I am now, and what we work on, we always prefer to settle it in different ways. That included in Venezuela. We tried repeatedly to reach an outcome here that did not involve having to go in and grab an indicted drug trafficker. Those were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
The people of Venezuela are waking up to the same regime. Do you not worry about that?
Well, first of all, the bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously this will be a process of transition. In the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it to... Well, again, I'm not going to give you a timeline on it. We wanted to move as soon as possible. But we didn't expect this would... It's been 3 days since this happened, 4 days since this happened. So I understand that in this cycle and society we now live in, everyone wants instant outcomes. They want it to happen overnight. It's not going to work that way. But we're already seeing progress. With this new deal that's been announced and more deals to follow, you're already seeing how the leverage the United States has over those interim authorities is going to begin to lead to positive outcomes.
He is referring to an announcement by President Trump yesterday that $2 billion worth of Venezuelan oil is going to be allowed to be exported from Venezuela to the United States. Unclear to me whether or not Venezuela is going to be paid for that oil or whether that is to defray the Operation Absolute Resolve costs. Don't know, but we'll continue to bring you news of that. I'm talking with Secretary Houston right after the break. Find out what was said in the briefing today in the Senate, if indeed attended that. And we'll continue to bring you updates from Minneapolis. Just understand the video appears to justify the shooting, but we aren't there. You're not there. We don't have all the angles. We don't know what was said to the woman in the car. We don't know who the woman in the car was, who is now dead. We do know that Jacob Fry is a moron, and if you're listening on AM 1280, The Answer, I think he's inciting riots in your city. Don't be surprised if you get them. Joined by United States Senator John Husted from the great state of Ohio, my home state. Senator Husted, welcome back. Happy 2026 to you. I want to begin by asking, were you in the classified briefing this morning on Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela over the weekend?
I was. I thought the Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth, Attorney General Bondi, and General Kane did an amazing job of explaining what I think was one of the most effective military actions of my lifetime to go in, arrest Maduro and his wife, have no American lose their life in that process, and not lose a single helicopter or asset, and to bring him back to America for trial. An amazing, amazing achievement for our U.S. military.
Did anything that you can disclose surprise you? A classified briefing is classified for a lot of reasons. Some of them just to deny the enemies we have around the world knowledge of how we operate. But is there anything that's unclassified that you can tell us about that amazed you about that operation?
Well, I can just say this, that if you really fully were in that briefing and you heard the complexity and the planning that went into this, and how, look, we could have just taken out Maduro if that's what we wanted to do, but we wanted to execute a legal order to try him in court. And that made this operation so much harder. It was amazingly executed and planned, though. To sit in that room and hear that description, you just have to go, America's military is the greatest military in the history of the world. And I was just impressed by what I heard.
Well, then, Senator, I want to move on. I want to get to your Upward Mobility Act. But first, there's been news this morning out of Minneapolis. Maybe it was afternoon on the East Coast. It's the morning on the West Coast that occurred, of a civilian driver who was driving into an ICE agent who shot her and killed her. Mayor Fry, the left-wing guy who's running Minneapolis, has called this on ICE to get the blank out of Minneapolis. I think he's inciting a riot. Have you heard about this? Do you have any comment on it?
Yeah, I do know a little bit about it. I don't want to draw any conclusions based on what I know, because we'll get new information. But it appeared that there was an individual who was obstructing an ICE operation when confronted by ICE agents. She drove off rather quickly in the direction of one of the officers, and then that officer shot and apparently killed the driver. It's a tragic incident. It's why you don't obstruct operations. But look, if for this mayor, stop running a sanctuary city. Stop trying to obstruct federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs. If people are in this country illegally, we have to enforce the rule of law, particularly if those people endanger other Americans. It's a tragedy anytime somebody loses their life, but it appeared from what I saw that this individual was obstructing ICE agents, and a tragic incident resulted as a result of that.
Senator Husted, you're one of the few people I know who served in state government as a legislator, as a statewide officer, both as Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor of Ohio. Now you're a federal officer. I don't know if you were ever on a local government. Were you ever serving in local government capacity anywhere?
I worked in staff at the local government level. Yeah.
Okay, so we all know there are three levels of government: the local government, the mayor or the county commissioner; the state government with the governor and everyone else, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, and then the federal government, of which you're a part now of the Senate. Where do mayors get the idea, like Jacob Fry, that he's in charge of ICE and can tell ICE to do anything. It's ridiculous. It's lunacy.
It's absolutely ridiculous. These people are violating federal law. We have federal law enforcement officials that enforce that law. That's just like saying that you're going to tell the FBI they can't operate in your city, or any other form of law enforcement, or telling the sheriff's department that they can't operate in your city. If you're it's ridiculous. In these, look, we have to enforce the rule of law. I hate to break the news to mayors, but when you have crime in your city, the law-abiding citizens don't like it. And it's you got to get out of the way. You got to enforce the rule of law. When people are in this country illegally, they got to go.
I believe that mayors like this are complicit in tragedies like this because they are encouraging interferences like this. But we'll talk about that another time. I want to know about the Upward Mobility Act, Senator. Since you put your name to it, what does it purport to want to accomplish, and how does it do so? Have you got co-signers? How's it look in the Senate?
Yeah, well, we just introduced it yesterday. And what does it do? It gets people out of the welfare trap. We trap people on government assistance in this country. How does that happen? Let's say you're using your food assistance, your housing assistance, you get a job, but all of a sudden, if you work more than 20 hours or earn more than a certain amount of pay, then you just lose all your benefits. And we call that falling off the benefits cliff. So anybody living in poverty knows exactly how much money they can earn before they lose their benefits. In many cases, the amount of money that they earn more when they get a raise or work more hours isn't enough to make up for what they lose. So we want to end that. We want to say, hey, let's put people to work. Let's reinstate the American work ethic. Let's gradually reduce people's benefits as they earn and get them out of government assistance, off of government assistance, and into the middle class, into self-sufficiency. This is an entrapment. Our poverty system is. We need to end it. The Upward Mobility Act will do that, and I think we're going to have a lot of people. We're going to have a House version that's being introduced today, and we hopefully will get it accomplished. It's a
Who
pilot
is your
program.
colleague in the House who's introducing the House version, Senator Houston?
We have Blake Moore from Utah. You asked me too quickly. And Utah does an amazing job at doing work there with their welfare reform efforts and poverty assistance programs, trying to get people to work. And look, we need it, Hugh. If we're gonna say we're gonna send people out of this country, we're not gonna have as much immigration. We're gonna have a workforce, right? And we want to put Americans to work. You'll appreciate this. I had somebody say, hey, the Chinese government subsidizes people to go to work in China. I said, well, that's great. It's better than what we do. We subsidize people to stay home in America. We need them to go to work, and this will help.
Well said. Senator John Houston of Ohio, always good to talk to you. We'll talk to you again, Senator. I appreciate the candor on Minneapolis and the briefing this morning, as well as the briefing on the Upward Mobility Act. Thank you, Senator. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I'm about to take my Relief Factor as I do every day. And what I want you to know is that I do this because, again, because of paperwork this morning, I was not out on the Implacable Hill. That's tomorrow. But I take it every day anyway. Because when I miss a day, that means I got to go double the next day. And I've missed 2 days in a row now. So that means a long Thursday and a long Friday and a much longer Saturday. Chance I'll miss tomorrow morning, too, if certain interviews come to pass. But Relief Factor works just provided you get the Icarian, curcumin, and resveratrol Omega up to the levels necessary in your body. You can get rid of the over-the-counter pain meds. Just rely on Relief Factor. The starter pack is $19.95, less than $1 a day. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF. Or go to their website, relieffactor.com. Find the starter pack, order it there at relieffactor.com. I want to return to the killing in Minneapolis today of a 37-year-old woman, she's white, who was interfering with ICE operations and appears to attempt to drive over an ICE agent intentionally. He had drawn his weapon, fired 3 shots, as we are told by reports, but first reports can be wrong, and she is dead. And Jacob Fry, the mayor, and I will take your phone calls on this at 1-800-520-1234, especially in Minneapolis, because I think your mayor is going to get a riot started here. 1-800-520-1234. The victim, not a victim, the dead person, I don't know if she's a victim or not. The dead woman is white, not a Somali. But Jacob Fry is acting in the most irresponsible way I can imagine. I've been at this for 35 years. I remember when Los Angeles burned in 1992. People didn't say anything after the Rodney King verdict, but at least not saying anything is better than, I guess Daryl Gates came out and made an idiotic statement at the time. I don't recall exactly, but this is throwing gasoline on a fire. Jacob Fry, cut number 2.
You have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get out of Minneapolis.
Blank. Stop.
We do not want.
He said, to ICE, get the blank, it's the F-bomb, out of Minneapolis. He then goes on to say, cut number 3.
Collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE.
Stop right there. He has nothing to do with this investigation. All right? He got nothing. It's a federal agent shot a woman. It will be investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation with the cooperation of ICE and the Department of Justice. It will have nothing to do with Jacob Fry. Shut up and sit down, Mayor, before you start a riot. I'll ask Mary Catherine Ham after the break what she thinks of that. 1-800-520-1234. Lee in Louisville. What do you think, Lee?
Oh, well, on this show, as I was watching the video, it appears to me that she is blocking the road with her car, with her SUV, and then when they tell her to get out of the car or they tell her to, whatever, she backs up, and she willingly goes forward. And what I see there.
I've heard that interpretation. The video, which I'm going to play again on the Salem News Channel for people, does not show the backing up.
Well, I see this one. I see is on. It sounds like it might be a person standing by on the sidewalk, and it appears that her backup lights come on real quick, and then they go forward.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that one yet. That's why I'm saying first reports are often wrong. But what I see her do, her window is down, an ICE agent is talking to her, and she accelerates into an ICE agent. That's what I see, and he shoots her. That's what I see.
Drives towards that guy. He gets out of the way, fortunately, and then bang, 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 and she runs into the car runs into 2 other cars down the street.
And what do you make of Mayor Fry's statements?
Oh my! This is what happens when you have people who are constantly belittling ICE agents. They constantly do this, and this builds up, and people begin to hate ICE because of what people like him in leadership roles continue to say over and over again. They're awful, awful, awful. And I don't understand why he can't. When he says stuff like that, it just builds animosity.
I know he's going to start a riot. That's what's going to happen. Thank you, Lee. I want to talk to John in Minneapolis to see if he thinks Mayor Fry is acting correctly. Hello, John.
Hi. This place has descended into 1860 South Carolina so fast, I can't believe it. I mean, this is pure nullification of federal law. And Jacob Fry, Walls, boy, we couldn't have worse leaders out here. I swear to God. I think they're in just full panic.
I know you would have to go around and find very hard to find someone less competent. Fatah, who ran against him, would have been that person. But he is wildly incompetent, and now he's incendiary.
Right, yeah. We're there. I'm adjacent to Minneapolis, first ring suburb. Not too far away from all the fires, all the activity down there with George Floyd. In fact, I think this address here where it has happened was very close to where the George Floyd
was murdered, and that's he was the police officer Shaven, I think, was convicted. There was no doubt about that. We had that video. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think law enforcement is exonerated here, but we will see. John in Minneapolis, thank you. Joined by the one and only Mary Catherine Ham. She's back with Getting Hammered, the podcast with Vic Mattis, who is I call him Victorino Mattis sometimes. I get it right, but Mary Catherine Ham's easy for me to remember. Happy New Year to you, MK. And
thank you so much.
I have to cut to the chase because of breaking news. Your reaction to the incident in Minneapolis?
Yeah, look, we don't want an incident to end this way, and the world we live in now is that there's like an information war as soon as it happens, and so you want to be careful about how you're characterizing things, but there are several angles of this interaction between ICE officers and this civilian vehicle, and from at least two of them, it seems quite clear to me that either contact is made or she's accelerating toward an officer, and many people are letting their priors be confirmed by whatever video they see. There will be an investigation, but I'm sort of mystified by people saying there's nothing, like, she did nothing wrong here. Like, even if it was an act of panic, not malice, which it certainly could be, you can't accelerate toward an officer in a vehicle.
When there's another officer talking to you through the window. In fact, we had an unfortunate acceleration on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, California, a few years ago by an elderly person who was not prosecuted or jailed, although he negligently murdered a bunch of people. He just hit the wrong pedal and went into a crowd. That's not this. There are reports that she backed up and then drove off into this guy. Let me play for you a couple of Jacob Fry, Mayor of Minneapolis clips, Mary Catherine. Cut number 2 is his first statement.
I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get out of Minneapolis.
Stop. That is to get the blank out of Minneapolis. It's the F-bomb. Then let's go to cut number 3.
Collectively, are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America.
Stop, Mary Catherine, if you're watching this picture, and if we could put that film back up there for the benefit of the Salem News Channel audience from the Relief Factor studio, there's an officer dressed in gray to his left. There's an officer dressed in white to his right. Then there are two, they appear to be black gentlemen. One is wearing a cap and a sort of a winter coat. The other guy's got a beard and a jacket on, but not they're not law enforcement. And then an interpreter. Who are these people? What are they doing there?
Yeah, I don't know. And I wish that Frey would be at first blush more responsible about the way he's talking about this. It's certainly not going to help get to the bottom of things for him to immediately deem the facts on the ground, whatever he feels that they are, or whatever he thought he had predicted. And also just federal law enforcement is allowed to be in American cities, and they are allowed to be lawfully executing the laws of the United States, which they weren't doing on immigration for so many years. And we got this huge backlog and a large problem that is very tricky to solve. And I want them to be doing it while respecting Americans' rights, right? That's what we want. We don't law enforcement do that, but it's a very hard job. And then you've got a bunch of protesters in liberal cities who have learned that blocking traffic, that driving into people is something that happens without consequence. And it's not something that happens without consequence. It does not constitute speech when that's how you're protesting. It simply is not the same thing.
Now, let me tell you what I'm worried about. Keith Ellison is the Attorney General of Minneapolis. He's a radical. And now I don't know if he's going to run for governor now that Tim Walz has stepped outside of it, but he's a radical. So the Department of Justice, I think, is going to take a look at that video and decline to prosecute and, in fact, exonerate the officer who shot. And then Keith Ellison is going to try and prosecute him. And so if there aren't riots tonight, which Jacob Fry might very well be setting off, I am afraid of a circus. Am I overreacting to the fact that Keith Ellison's a moron?
I don't think you're overreacting. That seems like a very likely chain of events, and I hope that it won't come to pass, that there are riots, protests, of course, totally fine. But again, the left is not great at observing the difference between a protest and an act of violence. And that we don't know motives yet or exactly what came before this incident, but it looks like that may have been sort of what happened here, is that a protest turned into an act of violence, and those are not covered by the same protections.
Yeah, let me play for you Jacob Fry from 3 days ago. Okay, so this is 3 days ago, cut number 1, Mayor Fry.
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents that somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed. Somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed. And whether that is an ICE agent or a community member, we all know the tinderbox that could explode because of it.
Mary Catherine, is he helping things or just being a prophet there?
Well, that's the question. Are you predicting or are you sort of willing into existence what's going to happen here? Look, I think chaos has come for a long time from lack of governance and lack of abiding by the law or enforcing the law in liberal cities. And that is one of the reasons that federal law enforcement is in those cities. In some of those cities, local law enforcement is not allowed or refuses, thanks to liberal mayors, to help with the calm enforcement of the law. And then officers end up in more dangerous positions than civilians do as well than they would otherwise be in. I think this is a really sad outcome. And I fear that it will get worse in the coverage thereof and in the prosecution if Ellison decides to do that thereof. But I don't usually take a super clear position on these when I first see them, but there are 3 to 4 angles of this video that it seems clear that this person was intent on driving toward the officer and made contact with him. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. The question will be whether or not the firing of the shot is an appropriate response to that. And I don't know the answer to that question. I suspect the answer is yes, especially if she backed up and then accelerated forward and he thought he was in danger of his life. But we don't know yet. I just know Jacob Fry's a moron who's going to try and get Minneapolis burned down. Mary Catherine Ham, I cannot wait to hear you and Vic talk about this on the next Getting Hammered podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to it and see Mary Catherine along with me often on the Fox News channel. Getting reaction to the incident in Minneapolis that has left a 37-year-old woman dead and Mayor Fry popping up at a press conference, and I think he's going to end up getting people killed in Minneapolis and riots. Just in a replay of the George Floyd disaster of 5 years ago, we could end up with, it's not summer, so that is the only thing going for us here. Bill in Los Angeles, what do you think, Bill?
Hey, Hugh, I only took one a constitutional law class at Columbia in the journalism program, but it seems to me, and you're the expert, can the U.S. attorney prosecute Mayor Fry for violating his Article 6 oath to uphold federal law?
No. No, he can't, because we have freedom of speech in the country and he's constitutionally protected. However, there would be legitimate civil actions brought against him if anyone could prove causation from his incendiary remarks to damage to their property. And he would claim local immunity. What year were you at Columbia J School, Bill?
85 to 86.
Okay, we missed. I went up there and did a profile of Nick Lehman when he was the dean working for the old Weekly Standard. And I think it's dangerous to teach con law to journalists. Then they think they know it. But have you been working as a journalist?
Not lately, but I've been making a lot of calls and trying to straighten some people out who have absolutely no information on the constitutionality, which is most of these people on the legacy media programs.
Oh, you're right about that. I will leave the anchor unnamed. Georgetown or George Washington, one of the two law schools, it's probably George Washington, inside the Beltway, is running a 1-year certificate in law that doesn't make you a lawyer, doesn't prepare you for the bar, but makes you fluent in legalese. And I think it's great for anchors to take that so they don't say incredibly dumb stuff. I don't know if Jacob Fry's a lawyer or not, but that is the most remarkable statement of stupidity to ICE get the F out of my city. He's not the president. He's not even the governor. He's the mayor. It'd be like the mayor of anywhere telling the FBI to leave the city or the National Guard to leave the city. They don't have the authority, Bill. Do you think they don't understand that?
Well, at what point does this become obstruction of justice? I'm a free speecher, but at what point does it become obstruction of justice by people who have sworn an oath, according to Article 6, that includes executives of the jurisdictions and the states and legislators to uphold federal law?
Well, speech is never obstruction. It would actually take acts interfering with the investigation or a conspiracy to commit them. I'd have to turn to my actual criminal law buddies to find that out. But he's not there yet. What he's doing is being profoundly irresponsible. And if a riot follows, and I'm worried about that, we will know who lit the match. Because he could have come out there and said, to the people of Minneapolis, protest all you want. Do not drive at ICE agents. Do not in any way attempt to injure ICE agents. They are federal employees. And while you may not want them being here, they have the right under the federal Constitution and the state and local laws of the United States and the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis to be where they are. That's what he should have said. Bill, thanks for the call. I am joined in this day of breaking news by Noah C. Rothman, senior editor at National Review. Noah is also, of course, the participant frequently in the commentary podcast, as well as occasionally on the I've got this reversed, the National Review podcast, and occasionally on the podcast for commentary. Noah, welcome. Big breaking news day. Let's start with Minneapolis. President Trump has just posted a Truth Social post. I want to read it to you. I've just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was, obviously, a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left, capital R, capital L, is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe, all in caps. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from the radical left movement of violence and hate. Now, Noah, before we get to your reaction, tell people what the new title of your forthcoming book is.
It's called Blood and Progress, A Century of Left-Wing Violence in America. It's coming out on May 19th. I hope you'll consider pre-ordering it.
I hope everyone will. And Dwayne and I were talking with you off air. You may have to add another chapter if what happens in Minneapolis tonight happens in Minneapolis. And I think Jacob Fry's comments are going to lead to a riot. Your assessment of this entire situation.
Yeah, first, the inciting incident. I've watched about 3 or 4 videos of it, and I've seen enough to get a general shape of the event, but not nearly enough to render a verdict on it. And I'm shocked at the extent to which so many in the commentary class and political professionals and elected officials are rendering judgments on this event as practically as it's happening in real time to a degree that seems designed to inflame public opinion. The precise opposite of what responsible communicators and responsible political actors should be doing in these moments. I've seen Jacob Fry's reactions. I've seen Governor Walz's reactions, who's preemptively activating the National Guard in anticipation.
Wait, I don't know about this. What's Walz doing? That's news to me.
Preemptively activating the National Guard, or issuing a warning, a warning order to the Minnesota National Guard in anticipation of civil unrest. And it seems very much like the civil unrest is the sort of thing that they anticipate, if not invite. It's almost a hard thing for me to say. But the extent to which they're agitating makes it hard for me to think anything else.
Yeah, let me have the audience listen to Mayor Jacob Fry, cut number 2.
I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, out of Minneapolis.
We bleeped out the F-bomb,
Noah,
for the benefit of you. We are an FCC-regulated broadcast station on television and radio, so we can't use the F-bomb even when the mayor of Minnesota does so, of Minneapolis. Here's his second comment, cut number 3. The audio's off, Harley.
Of this, to get justice and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it.
So I want to freeze hold the screen on there. Can you put the clip back up there, Harley, and freeze it? Noah, there's a police officer to his left. There's a police officer to his right. There's an interpreter. Then there are these two guys standing there. Who are they? What are they doing there?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, stakeholders in Minneapolis at this point, and certainly stakeholders in the career of Mayor Frey and Governor Walz, given the corruption scandals swirling around them. That's such a profoundly irresponsible statement. We don't have the body cam footage. We don't know if a jury presented with all the facts will determine that the woman who engaged the vehicle prior to these shots being fired will determine that the driver was going at the police or away from the police. All that matters in a courtroom. But we're adjudicating this now in the court of public opinion, which is a terrible place for these facts to be assessed. And I think that's in part because they want that to be the case. These political officials in Minnesota want us to be chewing over a narrative, not facts, a narrative, in order to inflame. And the passions are alive on social media right now. And it's the sort of passions we should be very afraid of. Over the course of the last year, there were multiple attacks on ICE officers, on CBP officers, deadly attacks designed to murder them, including a small cell terrorist action in Texas involving 10 individuals who used sophisticated strategies in order to lure out their targets and attack them from multiple fire positions, multiple angles. It was a terrorist assault. One of several. And the increasing attacks on American law enforcement are, just to bring it back a little bit back to my book, are indicative of waves of terroristic violence of the sort, left-wing terroristic violence of the sort we've seen throughout the 20th century, in the 1910s and the 1920s, 1960s, 1970s, early 1980s. And now these waves happen, they come in cascades and they crest in ways that are particularly bloody. We haven't even begun to see what that bloodshed will look like if we have a wave of violence akin to the one that overtook the 1960s and 70s and the 1910s and 1920s. And that's what I try to warn about. But these warnings are going unheeded. There is so much temptation out there in the zeitgeist for something like an existential violent conflict with their political opponents. I don't even know if it can be stopped at this point.
No, I got to go back in time to 1992. It was my second month on television as one of the co-anchors of the local PBS affiliate Nightly News and Public Affairs show Life and Times. And I've been on the air 2 months when LA went up in flames in the 1992 riots. Many, many people were killed. Many people were injured. It followed the acquittal of the police officers charged in the first trial, following from the Rodney King beating. And I believe Daryl Gates said something that was, if not inflammatory, it was almost a stand-down order. Then we had the truck driver, Reginald Denny, beaten at the corner of Florence and Normandy, and nothing happened. It was like beaming an alert signal to every bad guy in the city, who then went out and rioted. I would not be surprised if Minneapolis is the scene of violence tonight. Would you be?
Well, you had said something at the end of the last hour, which is a hopeful mitigating circumstance, is that it's cold.
Yep.
If it was the summertime, it would be almost a certainty that we would at least see agitated demonstrations and isolated incidents of riotous violence. You can't rule it out, though, because a lot of the mob violence that we saw in 2020, 2021 was not organic, was not spontaneous. It was coordinated and planned. You don't take my word for it. Take the word of New York City's police officials who identified out-of-state actors who were working in concert with other actors across the country in order to foment that kind of riotous violence. This sort of thing is organized, and to the extent that it's organized, it can materialize even in the absence of the kind of organic circumstances in which people just languidly mill about until there's some sort of an incident which snaps the reptilian part of your brain into action and you just join in with the mob. That's not what we would be talking about. We would be talking about organized insurrectionary activity, and we cannot rule that out. Let
me move from this to Operation Absolute Resolve. Do you believe the demonstrators urging the release of Maduro in Brooklyn or New York, wherever he was held, Manhattan or Brooklyn, that was organically organized? That the pro-Maduro, the Chavistas in New York just showed up on behalf of Nicolas Maduro?
Maybe some, because it was really only a handful. It wasn't, a mass demonstration. But I would imagine there's a listserv somewhere that appeals to the fellow travelers out there. I don't think any of them were paid to show up, for example. There really are a bunch of people who are just mindless progressive buffoons who really believe in the utopia that Hugo Chavez established in Caracas. They're just you can't say that, it's Hanlon's razor. You can't attribute necessarily to malice that which is more easily explained by stupidity. So I'm willing to lean into stupidity there. But certainly there are organized organizations that foment that kind of hostility and say, this is where we're going to meet and you guys should all show up. But I don't know if there's an organized effort there, akin to what we were talking about when it comes to the violence of 2020 and the riots and the degree to which those were organized and coordinated.
Now, can I keep you for another segment, Noah? Have you got time? Okay. I want to comment to you on what the web has done, and I'm going to use a very unusual way of leading into this. Last year or the year before that, a revival of sorts began at Asbury College in Kentucky. And because of the web, it became a national incident, and people attracted to, in quotes, revivals, flooded the town and the college, and they were overwhelmed. I do believe the internet allows people to turn their car around and head for Minneapolis right now. And after the break, I'm going to talk with Noah. If he thinks that might happen tonight in Minneapolis, I'll go check the weather during the break as well. Noah is the author of the forthcoming book, Blood and, what do we call it, Noah? Blood and what?
Blood and Progress. A century of left-wing violence in America.
You are gonna need another chapter, Noah. It is 41 degrees in Minneapolis right now. It's not going to get that cold tonight. It's going to get down to 30 degrees. And tomorrow about 2 p.m. Minnesota time, it's going to rain or snow a little bit. But it's for Minnesota, that's balmy.
That's balmy.
There are crowds already chasing cops out. We have some video of that. So let me play the Tim Walz clip that we just got so that the audience can hear what you, Noah Rothman, have already heard. Cut number 13.
I don't know. I hope. Maybe we're at the McCarthy moment. Do you have no decency? Do you have no decency? We have someone dead in their car for no reason whatsoever. And I don't want to be right about this, but I said if they do this, they're going to create a chaotic situation where someone innocent's going to get killed. And they did it.
So,
and now
for no reason. What do you make of that commentary? For no reason.
I mean, a couple of things. First, and it's a relatively cheap shot, but the quote is not, do you have no decency? The Joe Welsh quote, which is famous, is, have you no decency, sir? That has the advantage of being grammatically correct. And I can't understand why he said it twice. Actually, I can. It's because he has absolutely no concern for how he comes off. The man is a buffoon. He's a boob. He cannot meet the measure of any moment, much less this one.
No need to indulge in compliments, Noah. You don't have to build him up.
His inclination here is so reckless, so grotesque. It is to indict the federal government and law enforcement officers having absolutely no basis to render that judgment. He does not have the evidentiary threshold to render that judgment. So rather than be responsible and hold back and allow cooler heads to prevail, he's instigating. He's telling them that this person was killed, was murdered, perhaps, by federal law enforcement agencies.
Let me add cut number 15, which is where you say X, hoping not X happens. Cut number 15.
Minnesotans don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe.
What do you think of that, Noah?
I'm glad you said do so in a peaceful manner, but that is the sort of thing you say to indemnify yourself after you've expressed 14 other sentences, which are instigatory, which are the sort of thing that would inspire people to get out in the streets under the impression that they are acting righteously and judiciously because the federal government is lawless and is indeed engaged in a violent attack on citizens of Minnesota. He had said previously, "We have never been at war with the federal government." He said that word. He said those words, as though we are now. What's the implication there? Why would you even say such a thing, unless you were saying that in order to identify delineate the time, the before and after? Before it was peaceful. Now it is a state of conflict. This is all very reckless.
Now I want to go back 5
playing
years
with fire
in a
that
day.
they don't understand it.
I want to go back 5 years in a day to Donald Trump addressing a crowd near the Lincoln Memorial on the Ellipse when he said, "Now go march to the Capitol peacefully and demonstrate." And Jack Smith said that was enough to charge him with the intent to riot, and he thought hold him responsible for the Capitol riot of January 6th. Is there a difference in kind here? Because I think actually Walz is inciting, and I don't think President Trump was because of the distance that had to be covered under the Brandenburg test in the Supreme Court lore. But I don't think Walz will be guilty of anything either if people riot tonight. Do you?
No, because the Brandenburg test is not the right thing to apply here. We're not talking about criminal charges. We're not talking about the charge of incitement to violence, which is notoriously difficult to prove. This is not a legal issue. This is about being a responsible political actor. And responsible political actors say, yeah, this is an assault on your rights. We're at war with the federal government. They're coming to murder you. They want to invade this state. They want to occupy this state. They want to take away your rights, but be peaceful. That doesn't invalidate the last 14 sentences you said. And I would say the same thing about Donald Trump. Indeed, I have in a 2,500-word piece published today about the January 6th revisionism that was published to the White House's website, which I found absolutely obnoxious. So I've got credibility on both ends of the spectrum here.
Well, I've had one rule. I've always had one rule, which is Jack Smith was out of control because you might condemn whatever happened on the Mall, and certainly I condemn what happened at the Capitol, but that wasn't criminal what Donald Trump said and Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman. It wasn't Brandenburg incitement, and neither Jacob Frey nor Tim Walz are engaged in Brandenburg incitement because you must have the present ability and intent to cause violence when you urge people to cause violence, and they don't have that. But they are remarkably indifferent to the history of Minneapolis, right? This is
Blasé to a degree that is really irresponsible, and I don't think you can divorce the scandal that is engulfing Minneapolis from this.
I don't think so either. I was getting there. Go ahead, expand, because the guys in the picture, I don't know that they are Somali Americans. I don't know that they're not. I suspect that they are, but I don't know. Do you think
I don't know
they
either,
are?
but that's a really reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
Based on the extent to which this diaspora has an outsized influence, given the size of the population, outsized influence over the politics of Minneapolis in particular, and Minnesota too. And we've seen the degree to which they can bilk the state out of untold billions of dollars with very little oversight. Indeed, we have records that indicate that in at least the case of the Minneapolis Education Department, they were scared to death of this community merely because they could be accused by it of being racist for looking too hard at their graft and corruption. And they won that argument with an ultimatum alone. So yes, it's important for us to say that because of your own admissions, we can assess that you do not have the wherewithal to confront this community, to police this community. And because it has become such a scandal in Minnesota, it's blowing up in Minnesota. It's not so much a national scandal anymore, but Minnesota has been consumed with this for months, at least since the piece in the New York Times that came out just before Thanksgiving. And that's the sort of thing that you might want to get off the front pages, especially since Tim Walz's career.
Last question. If you were a fraudster in Minneapolis, if you actually know that you're guilty, but you haven't been convicted yet or charged, would you want a riot tonight?
That's a good question. Why, in your estimation?
Just to turn the page, change the subject, get away,
change the
absorb
subject.
federal resources.
It would. I don't think it would save you from being indicted or prosecuted. So the individual who makes that calculation is probably miscalculating. But from a political perspective, for individuals who presided over this scandal, who aren't going to face criminal charges for it, but are facing consequences in the arena of public opinion for it, yeah, you absolutely would want to turn the page on this. And even domestic violence, as awful as that was, it really didn't turn out so terribly for Tim Walz and Jacob Frey. They survived it. So that's their experience. That's how they approach this scenario. Why wouldn't they think they'll survive this?
Oh, that's an excellent point, Noah. Muscle memory is be on the side of the rioters. I was reelected. That's muscle memory. There are no riots right now. There are some crowds that have gathered in Minneapolis. They've chased some police away in various neighborhoods, but there are no riots, no violence yet, other than the killing of the 37-year-old driver who appears to have backed up and then accelerated into an ICE agent. Noah C. Rothman on X. Thank you, Noah. Jonathan Turley reports that Ilhan Omar has joined Mayor Frey in effectively calling this officer a murderer, referring to the woman as a, quote, legal observer. Once again, Democratic members are, again, rushing forward to fuel the rage with reckless rhetoric. My number is 1-800-520-1234. Dan in Minnesota, what do you think?
I'm looking at the 3 videos on X, and I'm wondering if they're the same video by 3 different people, or is it one video shared?
I don't know what you're looking at, so I can't tell you. There are a number. There are a number of videos going around, Dan.
I can tell you. At Amy_Siskind, at LPC.
Well, yeah, Dan, we're not going to. I don't give out websites because not all websites are reliable. But there are a lot of videos for people to see. I've been playing one, which shows fairly conclusively an officer at the side talking to her. She backs the car. She backs the car up, and then she accelerates forward into the officer who fires in response. And
right, I agree.
That's it. It's dispositive.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Do you think there's going to be a riot tonight?
God knows. God knows. I hope not.
I hope not either. I hope people go home, and I wish the mayor and the governor would act and say, this is a very tragic incident. The woman should not have driven into the ICE agent, and whether or not the ICE agent shooting is justified will be investigated. Go home. Thank you. Carol Blaine, Minnesota. What do you think, Carol?
Hi, Hugh. I just wanted to, I don't know much because I was working, but I wanted to tell you that mayor and the police chief, neither one of them are from Minnesota. I don't know if you know that. They're both from New Jersey, and they need to go home. Of course, the governor, he's not from Minnesota either. He's from Nebraska, and they don't want him there anyway. But his family doesn't even want him. But they're not from Minnesota, neither one of those guys. And what happened was I heard about the police chief when they got him. It's the Minneapolis is controlled by Democrats. They even hire the state employees so they can keep tabs on them and have the thumb on them. And Ellison is the same way. They're just totally thugs. They really are.
Well, right now there's a disturbance in downtown Minneapolis. Lock your doors. Thank you, friend. Kevin in Minneapolis, what do you think?
Well, I've got the screenshot from as recently as May of last year with Tim Walz in his standard hand-waving behavior, declaring that ICE are modern-day Gestapo.
That's your governor. That's why he's not running, by the way. He's not running to spend more time with his family. He can't even get reelected in Minnesota after being selected to run as the vice president. Everybody wants him out. Thank you, Kevin. 1-800-520-1234. I want to welcome News Radio Pensacola 92.3 in Pensacola, Florida, WNRP. Welcome aboard the Hugh Hewitt Big Train. We are the omnivore. We keep devouring stations left, right, and center. Up north in Michigan, WMKT in Charlevoix and Petoskey, Michigan. I want to welcome Triple Talk 102.3, 103.3, and 1270 AM to the universe. You can get most everything that I say every day on the podcast, Highly Concentrated Hugh, available at the Salem Podcast Network or at iTunes or at Spotify, wherever podcasts are. Like and subscribe. If you don't catch the show in the afternoons or the evenings, you can always listen in the morning when you get up for your workout. Also want to thank one of my sponsors, andrewandtodd.com. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. andrewandtodd.com are with Union Home Mortgage. And there's a big Wall Street Journal story today. President Trump does not want large corporate America buying houses. I don't think he has the authority to stop it. He can certainly jaw with BlackRock and the other people who want to buy up America's for sale housing, but I don't think he has any legal authority to stop it. I do, however, know that if you're out there trying to buy your own home on your own behalf, you want to have the bidding ability, the instant credibility that the large corporate buyers of homes have. They'll write a check. Maybe you can't write a check. Most people can't. But you can present a guarantee of a loan from andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172, because they are a bank, Union Home Mortgage. They are a bank. They can guarantee to the seller of any home that you want to buy that your mortgage is approved. You have the down payment. You are credit worthy. They will underwrite the loan. They will fully fund the loan. It will be ready to go. But to get started, you got to call them first, 888-888-1172. And if you need to refinance your home in order to consolidate debt, or you're a veteran, you don't want to put any money down, or you're a senior and you want a reverse mortgage, call Andrew and Todd at 888-888-1172. Let's talk to Gil in Atlanta on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hello, Gil.
Hi, Hugh. Hugh, I'm afraid an event like this was inevitable. This is what the left wanted. They're going to seize this opportunity to try to inflame the notion in America that to turn public opinion against the ICE movement. I pray for the family of the deceased woman, and God bless our ICE agents. I'm afraid this was something that the left has been looking forward to.
Well, as Noah Rothman pointed out, there was a very calculated, sophisticated attack on an ICE facility in Texas last month, and attacks on ICE agents have become common. And it is knuckleheads like Jacob Fry and Tim Waltz who are doing their best to make sure they continue by not condemning them. Thank you, Gil. John in Northumberland, Pennsylvania. Hello, John.
Hi, Hugh. How are you? It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment. I'm a retired Border Patrol agent. I was in the Border Patrol for over 20 years. I was also a use of force instructor during that time for most of my career. And having not seen the video, but hearing the description of what has taken place and what you've said, there is, in my opinion, an absolute call for a use of force in that situation, the use of deadly force in a situation like that, when somebody is coming at you with a vehicle that has the ability and the opportunity to do serious or grievous bodily harm. And I think what the governor and this Fry, I believe is
Mayor Jacob Fry.
What they are doing and what they are saying is nothing short of.
I am increasingly,
and I just wanted to give my opinion on that.
You are not alone. I do not have an opinion because I just don't know enough about the angles that I've seen and what is justified. What did you say you instructed in justifiable use of force?
I was a use of force instructor over the years with the Border Patrol, and we would cross-train with ICE agents and other federal agencies, and we had entire portions of our training that were dedicated to situations such as this.
I imagine that these agents have been trained in prep because of the organized resistance they are being greeted with in various urban areas, whether it's Portland and Seattle, the shooting in Texas, the L.A. Near riot that Donald Trump stopped by deploying the National Guard. But I just cannot believe the governor and the mayor. They're not saying what you would say if you wanted your city to remain calm.
I would absolutely agree. And yes, I would also agree that these agents have been trained for situations like this. And I might add that they are showing tremendous restraint in the face of this insightful rhetoric that's going on and the people that they're dealing with. I tip my hat to them. They're doing a phenomenal job in the face of all this adversity.
Well, this is another, and I won't keep you long, John, but I think it's an 80-20 issue. I think 80% of America stands with the ICE agents, and they want, especially people for who detainer notices have been issued, to be turned over to ICE when they're released by local authorities. And they want violent offenders who entered the country illegally to be deported. That's what the overwhelming number of Americans want. So I don't know who these demonstrators are, but it's an 80-20 issue.
Yes, I live in a very liberal town in Pennsylvania. I'm called the town that I listed on my call is where I work. It's not where I live. And even in this liberal town, when you bring up illegal immigration and you bring up this sort of thing, where people aren't in a public forum where they need to say the right thing, everybody overwhelmingly, and I'm in different homes every day with customers, and every day when they find out what I previously did, it's just overwhelmingly they agree. That
Democrats have lost their mind. They really have lost their mind on this.
Lost touch.
Lost touch is a better way to say it. Thank you so much, John. I got a lot of phone calls to get through, but it reminds me almost all of you are using wireless. And we have a great sponsor, consumercellular.com. Their phone number is 1-800-411-4454. And they will give you, if you remember my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, and you use it when you call, 1-800-411-4454, you'll get your second month of service free. Now, you can have savings and the same quality of service that you get from Big Cellular. Consumercellular.org makes money by being better at what they do than Big Cellular, and by offering, especially 50 years old and older people, a deal that can't be beaten. Unlimited data. Unlimited data, 2 lines of unlimited data if you're 50 years and older for $60 a month. For $60 a month, 2 lines of unlimited data. And when you use my name, Hugh, whether you go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, or you call 1-800-411-4454 and say, I'm calling about Hugh Hewitt Show and the code is Hugh, you'll get your second month for free. Remember, you can have it both. You can have savings and you can have service, but you got to go to Consumer Cellular to do that. And if you're using your cell phone to call me, you're a good candidate to do that. Get your phone bill out before you call them, but do call them 1-800-411-4454. Mary in Minneapolis. How are you, Mary?
Hi, Hugh. Well, we live about a mile and a half from where it happened. I'm a neighbor of James.
Oh, yes, we've talked before.
Yeah, we've talked, and I met you years ago at their house. Anyways, and this happened about 3 blocks from where the Floyd situation was.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, oh, dear is right. We are locking our doors. My husband's coming home from work because he's like, the highways are going to be blocked. And I'm so ticked off with Fry and the rest of them. You know, even O'Hare, I don't know what his problem is.
They're not helping.
And
they're not helping.
No, and I've called them. Of course, what my husband's like, why do you bother? And I'm like, I don't know, because I need to vent. And I called and I said, if you would only cooperate. And this is a perfect example.
Well, Mary, call me tomorrow again and let me know how the night goes. Hopefully it will be peaceful. Everyone does listen to me in the Twin Cities, AM 1280. Go home, stay home. Don't go out, be a looky-loo. Don't go out to see if there's a riot. Go home, stay home, batten down the hatches, and hopefully it will pass. The feds will investigate. The FBI will investigate. Justice will be done. But don't go out tonight. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. And if you're watching on the Salem News Channel or listening on radio, if you're watching, you can see the bag of Relief Factor. If you're listening, you can hear it. I take it every day, and I tell you about it every hour because the Relief Factor studio exists up north in the Belt State and out west, where I am right now. I'm out west. And that's because they support the free and fair exchange of ideas across the United States. They support this show. They'll support me. I did not trundle this morning. Probably won't be able to tomorrow morning either, as I think I have to do a Fox and Friends hit very early in the morning and then subsequent early interview. But whenever I get back out on the implacable hill, it will probably make me want to hurt a little bit because it's been 3 days. I went up it on Monday, But if I don't get to go up again until Friday, that'll cause minor aches and pains. But not that bad. And they won't last because I take Relief Factor every single day. Call for the starter pack 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or go online, and you can get the starter pack online as well, $19.95. It's less than $1 a day. It will last you for 3 weeks. And at the end of those 3 weeks, your minor aches and pains will be gone. Doesn't heal major injuries, doesn't replace hips that are falling apart, does get rid of minor aches and pains that come both with exercise and certainly with aging. So get ahead of the pain. Get Relief Factor at relieffactor.com. Let me talk to Joan on Lake Minnetonka. Hello, Joan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I just wanted to call and tell you that I'm 73 and I've lived here my whole life, and I can hardly wait to get the heck out of Minnesota. It's gone so liberal, and Tampon Tim and Jacob Fry and Brian O'Hara, they're all liberal. They are so horrible. And I've watched the whole thing on TV, what happened in the city today. And let me tell you, we are up against all these horrible, horrible, horrible Democrats. And the state has always been liberal, but it's gone so far to the left. And I can hardly wait to get the heck out of here. And I totally agree with you. And I'm going to go to one of these states that are Republican.
Go to Florida, Joan. You deserve to be warm. Thank you. Barbara, Philadelphia. You got less than a minute, Barbara.
Yes, hi. Yesterday, Fox 9 in Minnesota posted on YouTube a video of the segment of the press conference by Brian O'Hara, the Minneapolis police chief, and he told verbatim that the community should the community has the constitutional right to observe, record, and object to the conduct of law enforcement. He basically told obviously people to get in their face, and this was yesterday. It's on the Fox 9 Minneapolis YouTube channel, and also, he has a very big conflict of interest because Brian O'Hara's wife is a Muslima who works.
Well, that doesn't matter. What matters is what he said yesterday is the opposite of what responsible public officials should be saying, which is nothing about objecting, protesting, and getting in their face, and observe the law is what they should say. We are a law-abiding nation, a nation of laws. The rule of law matters. Let's take some phone calls first on all that is happening in Minnesota. We'll begin in Minneapolis with Mark. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hey, Hugh, love your show. Hey, I was that woman and another couple cars were blocking the road. I was coming from the car show, and they're called ice disruptors, and they follow ice around, I guess, and they try to disrupt them from arresting people. And they had she had the road blocked off. I finally just took off. I mean, I backed up and got out of there because I knew what was going to happen. And I just wanted to say, nobody's talking about these people who are willfully disrupting ICE.
So let me ask you, do you live in the city, Mark?
Yeah, I live 6 blocks from where all that happened.
So what do you think is going to happen tonight?
Yes, this afternoon. And it was what they do is they block the road from ICE going through if they're chasing somebody.
Yeah, I get that, but let me ask you, what do you think's going to happen in your city tonight?
All the people that were down there, they finally got them dispersed, but I think with George Floyd, they got them. They kind of learned their lesson, and so I don't think that'll happen again. But it's sad that the woman is deceased. It is. I didn't know she was white, black, or whatever, but this whole area is a big hodgepodge of Somalians and illegals. It's been that way forever. And the city and the state hasn't done nothing for 30 years. And so it's our own fault as Minnesotans. And I got to say, rest of Minnesota is a great state. Minneapolis and St. Paul are two of the wackiest, most liberals, and they control this state.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. I hope you're right about nothing happening tonight. We'll be watching all night long. Lori in Bloomington, Minnesota. What do you think, Lori?
Hugh, how you been? I used to call you when I lived in St. Paul, and my first time back, Happy New Year in Bloomington.
Happy New Year.
Originally, I am from northern Minnesota, on the shores of Lake Superior, Duluth. And Hugh, honey, I feel like my state is circling the drain. It's like, what is going on?
Well, what's going on is the DLF has lost its mind. They've become the DSA. And like Comrade Mamdani, your state is run by morons. And I can't help you.
And morons, but I mean, our soy boy, Jacob Fry, mayor, he just bends over backwards for the Somalis. And I just wanted to call and vent a little bit. I really, really am bereft because my state for the last 20 years has just been going down the drain, and I don't know what to do. I went out to South Dakota a couple of years ago to check the territory out there, and I'm kind of thinking about moving if this keeps up.
Well, I still blame John Hinderaker, Scott Johnson, and Dwight Rabus for not running for governor. You got three very good, smart guys, and any of them, they all took a pass. But I blame them because this knucklehead, Tim Walz, who's on the
Enterprise Institute.
Yeah.
American Enterprise Institute is awesome.
The Center for the American Experiment. Yeah, the
anyway,
center.
Thanks.
You bet. Be well. Julie in Green City, Missouri. Hi, Julie. Hello, Julie. Are you there? Go ahead.
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Hi, Hugh.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm actually calling from Pine City, Minnesota. So born and raised in Minneapolis and just recently moved out a little bit further north because of the craziness. So I was able to listen to the hearings today on the Oversight Committee regarding the Minnesota fraud. Towards the very end of that, they broke the news about this woman and the ICE incident. I can tell you that the protesters in Minneapolis, in Minnesota in general, are all very highly coordinated, and Democrats constantly give them the green light to push, and agitate and get in these ICE officials' faces. We have major issues in Minnesota. We are thoroughly exhausted from the Democrats that are running this state. They have literally destroyed the state.
Well, I hope you make choices collectively at the ballot box in November to elect responsible government in the state capital, St. Paul, and whoever the Republican nominee is, that you elect a Republican nominee and you elect a Republican legislature that will end sanctuary cities, end this nonsense, and say, Tim Walz has already been driven out. He had to withdraw from the race. So you're not going to be stuck with that buffoon. But I also really do hope, I like the Twin Cities. I spent a lot of time there. I've been on the air in the Twin Cities for 25 years at AM 1280 The Patriot, and I hope to do it for another decade or longer. But I'll tell you this right now, I'm not going back to the state fair until they figure out this city, because it's become, I blame Jay Larson. Jay Larson, get to work. Thank you, Julie. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I want to remind you at the top of the hour what I told you at the bottom of the hour. Every single hour I tell you about Relief Factor. I take it every hour in the first hour, every program, in the first hour. And I have for 13 years now, because Relief Factor, not because they're a sponsor, a lot of supplements offer me a lot of money to become sponsors of the Hugh Hewitt Show if I will just take their product, and I politely turn them down. I'm not interested. It's the only thing I take because I've read the studies and I've read through all the things that support your anti-inflammatory system. I don't like minor aches and pains. I get my miles in. I'm not a gym rat. I don't swim. All I do is trundle. I used to be fast. I used to race. Then I ran, and now I trundle because I can't get under 10 minutes a mile for longer than a mile. And the reality is, doesn't matter. You'll still get aches and pains unless you're in good shape and you take Relief Factor. Relief Factor helps your body's anti-inflammatory system cope with the effects of aging and exercise. And you're definitely getting older, and you should be exercising. So whether you're doing a mile a day or 5 miles a day, I got 9 miles in on Saturday, 3 on Monday, and then I've been a complete loafer yesterday and today because of the news. But I will be back going up the Implacable Hill because I'm out west, or I'll be down in Huntington Beach on Saturday morning. And I'm here to tell you, Relief Factor really does work. 1-800-520-1234. If you're just tuning in, this is Mayor Jacob Fry. You call me at 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. Here's the mayor who is causing the problem. Cut number 1.
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents that somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed.
3 days ago, today, after someone was killed, after he and Tim Walz basically provoked people to obstruct, object, and get in the faces of ICE, and a woman was shot after she backed up and then went forward and ran into an ICE agent who fired at her. It appears to be self-defense. A lot of people have looked at it. I don't know. There will be other angles coming out. Don't know what the woman was saying to the officer at the window. Don't know what was going on, but we will find out. Jacob Fry today, cut number 2.
You have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get out of Minneapolis.
So what he said is, to ICE, get the blank out of Minneapolis. The blank is the F-bomb. We are FCC regulated. I'm not going to get fined by playing you. By the way, do you think that's a responsible way for the mayor to communicate? He's a hard left nut, right? But he's not. He wasn't as bad as Mr. Fatah, who ran against him and almost beat him. And so he's playing to the hard left part of a hard left city. Poor Minneapolis. Jenny in Blaine, Minnesota. What do you think, Jenny?
He is an embarrassment. I mean, so now we're F-bombing, right, on your announcement to the state and to the city, and it's just, he's so far gone, and he's trying to be a tough guy, and, it's just ridiculous.
He has no authority over ICE. I just want to make the statement. None. Right. Zero. Neither does the governor. They have no authority over the Immigration Customs Enforcement. They have no authority over the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They have no authority over the Department of Justice. They have no authority over any federal employee. Thus it has been since the Civil War. And Tim Walz may not know that. He really is not that bright. I think the whole country saw that. I don't know about Jacob Fry. I really don't know if he's a lawyer or whatever, but he's a very bad mayor. And if anything bad happens in Minneapolis tonight, it's because these two goofballs did not do what any normal people would do, which is to go out, express regret, and then tell people to stay home tonight and pray for the families of the deceased woman and for the ICE agent who was injured, and for all law enforcement, no matter whether they work for state, local, or federal governments. I'm joined by Philip Balboni, CEO and lead at the Global Post. GlobalPost.com covers the world every single morning in your inbox. Philip, Happy New Year to you. How are you?
Happy New Year, Hugh. I'm great. It's very good to see you. You're looking very well.
Thank you. We're going to talk. We're going to divert from Minnesota for a moment, and from Venezuela, and from Iran, because I read your lead story this morning on Haiti. Now, Haiti comes in and out of the American news cycle, and it's never good news. I didn't realize it had gotten this bad. Why don't you fill the audience in on the 11 million Haitians and what they're living through right now?
Sure. Well, first, I want to say, Hugh, in a world filled with grave problems, which you and all your listeners and viewers know, Haiti is a special kind of hell. It really is. It's a very sad place. As our lead story this morning pointed out, it's a country devastated by gang warfare. I mean, gangs control 90% of the capital city of Port-au-Prince. 10% of the population of 11 million, as you mentioned, Hugh, have been displaced, basically homeless. 15,000 people have been killed by the gangs in the last 4 years. There's basically no government. There is a transitional council, which has been in place for a couple of years. Their mandate runs out in February, next month. And and then there will be no government at all. So it's a dire situation that, despite the efforts of the international community over decades, really has not improved. If anything, it has gotten worse.
Yeah, I want to remind people the United States has invaded Haiti at least 3 times, most recently in 1994 when President Clinton sent American Marines in an attempt to bring calm. The UN has had a multinational force there which failed to bring order. And now there is talk of a different UN force. It's going to be the same thing, isn't it? Papa Doc and Baby Doc were dictators, but people didn't die every day by gang warfare.
Right. You're right. There is the UN Security Council with the support of the United States. Russia and China abstained from the vote, but it did pass. 5,500 new police and troops from somewhere, not known yet, will go and they will try their hand at bringing some degree of order. It's called the Gang Suppression Force, aptly named. Will this make a difference? I surely can't say. It's fair to note that, as you have, I think already, that all these other efforts have not succeeded. You know, Kenya sent almost 1,000 troops to Haiti in the hope of bringing some peace. They've been able to achieve little to nothing.
Yeah, I've only been to the Dominican Republic, which is on Hispaniola, the island that was discovered by Columbus in 1492. And the DR is a relatively stable place, and Haiti refugees are not welcome there. If they get there, they end up living in the most impoverished areas, the very mountaintops of the slums, because they have no money and no resources. But the DR does not. Yeah, they do. The DR does not want Haiti, right? They won't let them across their border.
No. I mean, the Dominican Republic has a thriving tourist industry, and obviously there many Dominicans are very well known for baseball. We had one here in Boston, as you may remember, Big Papi, very beloved figure here in Red Sox baseball.
What's interesting to me, Philip Balboni, is that nobody wants to go in the United States. Am I correct in observing there isn't a left-wing Democrat or a right-wing Republican or anybody in between? Nobody wants to take on Haiti. It is the Rubik's Cube of the world. It's worse than Gaza. It's worse than the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's not governable.
It's not. I mean, and you know, this is a country that is close to us, closer even than Venezuela. The people there deserve a good life, a better life. You know, not to overdo it, but as I said, it is a special kind of hell. I don't know why the good Lord has done this to the people of Haiti. Somehow, some way, maybe there'll be a miracle for them. I wish I knew the answer. I wish I could help myself.
Well, I appreciate that. By the way, my brother's in-laws operated an orphanage in Haiti for years. They gave up. I mean, they were great Christian people. They tried for years and years and years, as did many missionaries of variety of both Catholic and Protestant. Most have pulled out because it's too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. Exactly. So, Philip, I've got new affiliates at the start of the new year. I want to tell them about the Global Post. I would not have known about the Haiti story and the gang suppression initiative, doomed though it might be. Maybe it won't be doomed. But for the Global Post, globalpost.com. And what I want to emphasize to our new listener, if they're a student or a teacher, it's free, and it's very, very economical if you're not a student or a teacher. Why don't you tell them what the Global Post is all about?
Sure. Our mission is to help people know the world better, Hugh. It's as simple as that. You know, all of us have been focused on what's happening in Venezuela, the challenges facing the world. People need to know more. It's very hard to get trustworthy global news. This is what we do. We're nonpartisan. We have a pretty large audience, thank goodness, and we're here to help people stay better connected with the world, be better informed. And the price is only $46 a year. We arrive in your inbox at 6 a.m. Every Monday through Friday. And we would welcome your listeners and viewers, students and teachers, high school, college. It's free to them for their entire time of their education. So we love doing that work. We have students all over the world now and teachers reading Global Post every morning. It's a wonderful thing. I know it means a lot to you too. And young people, as much as anyone, need to be better informed about the world. They are going to be the ones who are taking over leadership and business world. And they need to understand now more than ever.
We used to joke about people. They couldn't find X, Y, and Z on a map. Now people can't find anything on a map. And so one of the things I like Global Post is they provide you the maps, they provide you the background, and they bring stories to your attention. It's a genuine crisis in Haiti. I had no idea it had dissolved into this level of complete chaos. Talk about a failed state. It reminds me of Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down days. But if you didn't expect Venezuela, Philip Balboni's been covering it for months. I know he'll be covering the Iranian Revolution as well as that continues to descend into chaos. Philip, good to see you. Follow Philip on X at @PBalboni. And to get the Global Post, whether for free or via subscription, head to globalpost.com, globalpost.com. Be informed about the world, even if your local media outlets aren't. Stay tuned, America. I'll be back with the latest from St. Paul and Minneapolis as unrest appears to grow there at this hour. I'll bring you up to speed when I'm back on The Hugh Hewitt Show. Joined by Sarah Bedford. Happy New Year to the Washington Examiner senior political correspondent. How are you, Sarah?
I'm great. Happy New Year, Hugh.
Thank you. I began the program with Senator Houston, who briefed us about what he could brief us about the Senate classified briefing on Operation Absolute Resolve. What's the reaction 3 days out to the extraordinary maneuver of the United States military in Venezuela over the weekend?
You still have Democrats expressing outrage over what happened, skepticism about the plans for the future of Venezuela, the control of the country, the plan to continue selling Venezuelan oil and potentially control the revenues from that by the Trump administration. You also had some frustration from the Senate Judiciary Committee, which I thought was interesting because Chuck Grassley, the chairman, very rarely criticized the Trump administration. But there was frustration at having been left out of those initial briefings because the administration is billing this as a law enforcement operation simply supported by the military. But overall, you're really seeing the reactions continue to break down on party lines.
Senator Tom Cotton, who's chairman of the Intel Committee in the Senate and a member of the Group of Eight, was my guest 2 days ago. He was not upset that the notice he received was after the mission was over at 3:30 in the morning when Secretary Rubio called him. Secretary Rubio, of course, formerly in the Group of Eight, because he had formerly been head of Senate Intel. It seems to me he is very much, perhaps more than any Secretary of State in our lifetime, aware of the nuances of South and Central America because he's from Florida and is of Cuban descent. And we seized 2 Venezuelan anchors to oil tankers today. At the same time, President Trump agreed to let oil from Venezuela into the United States?
I think you're right about Marco Rubio. I mean, his influence is clearly enormous here. He's in the right place at the right time for this sort of operation, having such a deep well of knowledge. And this is something that he's advocated for in the past. So he's really perfectly positioned to have a big impact here. But it all really depends if this is part of Rubio's legacy on what the future of this is. If you're talking about through a domestic political lens, Trump's supporters, a lot of them feel, they didn't vote for foreign policy adventurism. The nexus to sort of America First interest isn't immediately clear for a lot of, MAGA America First people. And so the risk for Rubio and to Donald Trump is that this devolves into some sort of nation building exercise, which is the precise thing that Donald Trump did run against. Whatever you think of the merits of the operation in Venezuela, that's absolutely not something that was part of Trump's pitch to voters.
Now, I saw Harry Anton yesterday say that 80% of people who voted for Trump approve of the Venezuelan operation. 86% is a lot. And so there is 14% are either don't know or oppose it. So there is that element. but I don't think it's nation building. I do think it's Reagan big stick, Teddy Roosevelt big stick, quote, diplomacy, and that we are running the country because we're not letting them move their oil without a say-so. Do you think there's a happy medium between isolationism and nation building? Because I do, and I think Trump's hitting it.
I think so. And you've seen him try to strike that balance previously. I mean, we've had limited military engagements in Iran, for example, when he went after some of their nuclear capabilities. You remember back in the first term when he dropped the Moab. He's certainly not afraid to use the big stick. And I think the real question is what happens from here, right? It's objectively awesome, the military stuff that Delta Force did, snatching Maduro from his safe house in Caracas. So there's obviously pretty high support for it now, but how this plays out in the future and the level of American involvement, if it becomes necessary to have military involvement in Venezuela, that will determine ultimately how this fits into Rubio and Trump's legacy.
Now, I have a proposition. As we talk, rioters are assailing the federal building in Minneapolis. ICE out after the woman was killed. I will bet you right now that ICE and Minneapolis matter more in November elections than does Maduro in Venezuela. Do you agree with me or disagree with me?
I agree with you on that one. So not a good bet. I think it'll be much more determinative. People rarely vote on foreign policy, especially not in midterm elections. And what we're seeing in Minneapolis is really tragic, but public opinion doesn't tend to be on Democrat side when it comes to immigration and when it comes to their rhetoric towards immigration officers. And so that sort of reaction, it's not representative of what, the median voter thinks.
I agree. I think Jacob Fry and Tim Walz are setting fire to their city, and I think they're setting fire to their party by siding with people who obstruct and attempt to injure ICE agents and don't immediately come to the defense of ICE agents and instead condemn them. I really do. I think they're burning down their own house, and I hope it does. I hope that remains figurative and not literal tonight. Sarah C. Bedford of the Examiner, DC Examiner, thank you. I've got a column in the Examiner today. I recommend everyone go to dcexaminer.com to read it and follow Sarah on X at Sarah C. Bedford, X at Sarah C. Bedford. So glad that former Senator Jim Talent of Missouri is here to talk with us about Operation Absolute Resolve. Senator Talent, I've been focused a lot today on the shooting in Minnesota, but I want to veer back to the capture of Maduro and his rendition to New York. Your assessment of the operation and what it means when President Trump says, we are running Venezuela, we are in charge.
Well, I'll give you my assessment, but maybe you'll allow me to read 3 sentences from the National Security Strategy, which I read last night on the pod, okay?
Oh, okay.
So if you go to page 5 of the National Security Strategy, they lay out the vital strategic goals of the United States, which you kind of do in a strategy. Well, here's the first one. These are described as the vital core interests of the United States. We want to ensure that the Western Hemisphere remains reasonably stable and well-governed enough to prevent and discourage mass migration to the United States. We want a hemisphere where governments cooperate with us against narco-terrorists, cartels, and other transnational criminal organizations. We want a hemisphere that remains free of hostile foreign incursion or ownership of key assets.
Well,
it is not yes, that is defined. It's right on, people ought to read the National Security Strategy. That's the number one goal. We are securing our strategic perimeter, having secured our national border.
Do you think we should send that? Should we send that to Denmark and our NATO allies who've got their shorts in a twist over Donald Trump wanting to buy Greenland?
Well, and the Greenland exercise or the Greenland impulse is part of this. I mean, yes, we are expelling foreign adversaries, and as you know, Venezuela is the poster child both for narco-terrorism and also for incursion of foreign adversaries. Are you familiar with Margarita Island, Hugh?
No, I confuse it with a different one that belongs to Colombia, but there are a lot of islands off the shore of both countries.
Right, and it's basically run by Hezbollah. There's been a 20-year relationship between Venezuela, the Chavistas, and Iran and Iran's proxy groups. So they train there. They have business facilities there. They launder passports there. And when I think of what's on the menu for the administration to continue applying pressure, I'm wondering if Margarita Island might be on that menu.
Oh, that's smart.
So when we talk about running Venezuela, what we're saying is the elements of the regime that remain are going to have to play ball with us in terms of our national interests. If they do, we're going to accommodate them, at least transitionally. Rubio's been very clear about this. This is not building democracy in Venezuela. It is protecting the strategic perimeter of the United States, and more power to them, Hugh.
Now, today, 2 tankers were taken, one in the Caribbean, relatively close to Venezuela, full of hot oil, and the one that got away and got a Russian sub in front of it and then reflagged themselves as a Russian boat, which they weren't. That's a transparent pirate tactic. And Russia warned us away, but we took it as well. What is your assessment of those operations?
Well, as you know, there's shadow fleets that engage in this flag hopping. In other words, they're constant. They're going radio silent. They hide their GPS coordinates. They try to change flags, and they carry illicit sanctioned cargo. They are all subject to seizure, including this one. Now, I'm wondering what else besides oil is at stake here, because this is pretty interesting that we would track it. I wonder what kind of personnel are on there. I wonder what we're going to find out in the next couple of days. But the broader strategy here, Hugh, is to apply pressure both to the Venezuelan government and, for example, to Cuba and to our other adversaries by cutting off a source of revenue from them, which is what Venezuelan oil has meant to them. And I think this is going to continue. I mean, sink the drug boats, seize the tankers, arrest the president, but at the same time, classic Trump strategy, offering negotiations with a deal on our terms, but a deal that ought to be acceptable to regime elements that don't want to end up in jail or dead. And
now,
so
Senator, last night, I had an exchange with a New York Times reporter on X, Lulu Navarro, who had said, journalists are being arrested, Chavista gangs are roaming the street, the United States owns this. And I said, no, we don't. We are not in charge of the regime. We are running quarantine, and Marco Rubio has explained this, and the president went at length to explain this on Air Force One on Sunday night, done it again since. And we went back and forth. I have a column coming out tomorrow on Fox. We might be running the country via indirect leverage the way a bankruptcy court controls a company in bankruptcy. Doesn't hire the secretaries or fire the salesman. It approves the final liquidation or the reorganization plan. That's what I understand us to be doing. We're not going to have a viceroy there like Ambassador Paul Bremer. Do you agree with me on this?
No, yes, I do, because the point here is to protect and advance the clearly identified American interests. It's basically defense of the homeland and eliminating risk in the perimeter surrounding the homeland. And so now it is given the Venezuelan people the best chance they have to regain their freedom and rebuild their country that they've had in what, close to 25 years. I mean, and we will certainly cooperate with that insofar as it's consistent with our vital national objectives. Dwayne and I talked last night about the similarities, and there are differences, but the similarities between how Trump approaches foreign policy and how Reagan did. It is at heart a realist foreign policy done in the belief that a strong, secure, and prosperous United States is, of course, needed for the American people, but is also the best hope for freedom and democracy in the world.
Now, Senator Talent, if I can get you to stay over for one segment, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about this. What's it mean for Cuba? I think Raul Castro is alive, but maybe not compos mentis. But there's a new dictator down there. It's an old police state. They have been a thorn in our side since 1959. It's a failed state. The poor Cuban people are impoverished. You're like Final Jeopardy. We're going to play the dun, 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 dun. And then I need an answer from you as to what the fallout is for Cuba. I gave Jim Talent, senior fellow at the Reagan Institute Center for Peace Through Strength and former senator from Missouri, 2.5 minutes to figure out what's going to happen to Cuba now. Because they don't have any way to buy anything. All they can sell was a security service which failed badly.
Right. Yeah. We saw what that was worth and what the Russian S-300s were worth. And I bet the Chinese are wondering how they're going to get their loans paid back.
You bet.
Right now. Venezuela's not looking like a real good proposition. By the way, do I have to phrase my answer in the form of a question?
No, it's not that final. It's just beginning. It's only double jeopardy.
It's not that final, okay? Well, Mr. Diaz-Canel, I imagine is pretty worried now by a number of things. And you mentioned the big one, which is they were really heavily dependent on revenue from Venezuelan oil. I mean, that was the deal. They sent in the security forces. They got to help loot Venezuela, and in return, they get a big cut of the, 500,000 barrels a day they're able to ship, down like 80% from what they used to be able to do. And the other thing that Mr. Diaz-Canel's got to worry about is if there is a regime our Secretary of State would like to see changed or overthrown, it's in Cuba.
Yep.
For personal as well as official reasons. So I don't imagine he's resting too comfortably right now. But what I will say is, I mean, they're gonna do one adversarial outpost, I think, at a time, right? And Venezuela, if we can accomplish what we want to accomplish in Venezuela, that's going to open up possibilities in a whole lot of other places, to include Cuba, but also Iran. And I don't want to.
That's falling apart in real time. I haven't even brought it up yet, but the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies is running a real-time update. Hundreds of demonstrators have been killed, and there have been hundreds of demonstrations, many of them violent, because the country's out of money. And again, it always comes back to the Soviet Union falling apart in front of our eyes. When a country runs out of money, desperate people take out the government, no matter how many Stasi agents or KGB agents or Cuban security agents or Chavistas. When they get desperate, they rise up.
You know, I watched Dan Senor's latest podcast. I know how much you like Dan.
Yes.
And he and his guests were discussing, and they used a metaphor for the Islamic Republic that I thought was really good. And this time when I use it, I'm going to give them attributes. In the future, I may not. But they said it's a zombie regime. It's ideologically dead, and it's financially dying, but it's still capable of staggering around and killing people until somebody puts an arrow through its head. And that's really where I think Iran is now. I think the fall of the regime is probably inevitable, but I still am skeptical that it's imminent. Because there's a lot of,
from your lips to God's ears, because Mark Dubovitz and a few other Iran specialists think it's closer than I thought it was. So hopefully they're right and we're wrong. Because I still think it's going to be years before Khomeini. I think Khomeini's got to die, but we'll see. Jim Talent can be followed on X at Jim Talent.